we'll rely on everyone present as far as motions and seconds, rather than our two that are online. It just, in case we don't have somebody, then I'll rely on them. But we have the agenda. If I could have a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
So moved.
Mr. Marshall.
May I have your attention, please? Testing of the fire alarm has concluded at this time. Moving forward, if you hear the fire alarm, you will have to exit the building. Thank you.
Okay, if I could get a second.
Second.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we don't have anybody present. I'm just going to assume that we don't have anybody with comments. If we could just get into the budget presentation. Mr. Ziliaks and Mr. Forbes.
Yeah, as I think most people know, we've continued to chip away in the process of hopefully putting together a budget that is thoughtful, reasonable, and responsible. Thinking about maintaining our educational program, thinking about supporting our mission, vision, and core beliefs, while doing so at a price that is respectful of our taxpayers in the district. So we had a meeting recently. A couple other concerns came forward, which we've tried to address in the information tonight. And we'll let Mr. Forbes walk us through it. And afterwards, questions, comments. Hopefully we can move forward from there. Mr. Forbes, thanks in advance for all your work, and also from our administrative team and the rest of the business office as we've been chipping away.
Okay. So this presentation will be reflecting the removal of the two equipment pieces and also the adjustment of the appropriated fund balance from the 1.2 down to 1 million. So taking a look at the salaries and benefits, you can see 342,000, we're up 1.5% across the board. 1.78 in instructional, which is showing the savings from last year's retirees. Also, non-instructional, we're up 4.38%, and benefits, which I'll explain in a second, we're down actually 12,000. On the next slide, you take a look at the salary and benefits. We're down because basically in the benefit area, that's where I tend to carry a lot of the surplus that I do have in the budget. And so I've trimmed it out of employees' retirement system, group health insurance, teachers' retirement system, and unemployment insurance. So that is why there's a negative there. Next slide you've seen before, which is the salary, retirements, and resignations, any incentives that are payable, and the replacements of each of those positions. Equipment, materials, and supplies, as I mentioned at the outset, we removed the truck and tractor request. We also reduced a number of lines where I've been carrying surplus in the area of materials and supplies. We also had a few items with the building level expenses that we were able to purchase out of remaining funds from this year, where I had some surplus, and then therefore make a reduction to next year's request. Similar on the contractual expense of BOCES services, we removed extra slots that I typically carry at BOCES for P-Tech, Alt-Ed, and one of the special education areas. We removed some of the surplus in transportation, and also took a look at what the anticipated cost would be for next year, and the fact that it looks like we're losing the ability to go to Brockton BOCES, so that would be a savings there, because that program's going to get absorbed in other BOCES that we already go to. Debt service summary, the only change on this is I typically carry 5,000 in case we ever need any kind of revenue or tax anticipation notes, so I removed that amount. On the revenue side, we're still using the governor's state proposal. As you can see in the emails that we sent out with the budget information, most of the areas were very minimal adjustments. Our foundation aid did not change, which was what was anticipated. What did change was BOCES services, and because based on a categorical aid where you get money based on what you spend, and our high-cost special education counts are up this year, I would anticipate that the BOCES number won't be what they have projected. I would anticipate that it would be higher, and therefore I haven't made an adjustment for that. You can see the appropriated fund balance. We reduced it down to $1 million, which is $127,000 less than the current year, and I've adjusted the proposal at the bottom to reflect the state aid at 43.79 and the tax levy at 51.35% of the budget. So in summary then, you can see to the right-hand side the difference between the proposed budget and the final for 2021-22. We're sitting at a spending increase of 2.03%. On the bottom, you can see the corresponding revenue accounts, which again ties out to 2.03%. How do we get from last Tuesday to here? We made fund balance adjustments of $272,907. We had revenue adjustments, which actually was a negative situation. We had to pull out the proposed sale of the truck. Then there were some minor adjustments to admissions, tuition for other school districts, and Medicaid reimbursement, and that came out to the negative $5,000. In expenditure areas, you can see the distribution of the areas that we cut, so pretty much touching all areas. Next slide shows comparative data. We're actually very much in line with the 21-22, which was 2.05%, and we're at 2.03 for this year. This coming year, I should say. Tax cap information, we had a maximum allowable levy under the cap calculations of 1.12. We're obviously sitting at 1%, so we've complied with the tax cap requirements. Also, if our budget were to be defeated twice, we have to comply with the administrative cap, and we currently sit 36,937 under that, so we're good there too. The tax levy limit, since it was instituted in 2012-13, you can see how we've done. Each of the X's indicates a year in which we are below the cap, and again, we will be for the 2022-23 budget. Capital outlay is a $100,000 project. We're currently considering blacktop, replacing the fire panel system, relocation of the Wheelock office with a secure entrance and the bathroom upgrade. Also, there's a required New York State architect's fee. If I had to pick two today, I would say we'd be looking at the Wheelock office and the fire panel replacement. Expecting a price on that today, actually, and that'll make our mind up, I think. And then finally, the projected tax rates, which didn't change from last Tuesday because everything that I did kept the budget the same, but you can see $1.23 in town of Pomfret, 43 in Arkwright, 41 in Portland, 35 in Sheridan, and 32 cents in the town of Dunkirk. And then there's the comparisons which show the current school year, 21-22.
Just a reminder to the board, if you're looking for more specific information regarding the amount that was removed, there was an attachment that breaks it down line by line for your review.
And some may wonder why there were so many lines and why I couldn't just take it out of one spot. Well, typically I'm carrying 1,000 extra on this line, 1,500 extra on that line, so that there's a little bit of flow, so that's why there's so many line items.
John, I got a question to the additional state aid, 112,000. Are we using the line item on our budget status report for adjustments to receive that money?
Well, any change to aid wouldn't be on the budget status report because that's the expenditure side. It would have to be a revenue side, but that also won't be until the 2022-23 year. And of that aid, 165,000 is universal pre-K, which is federal fund. So that won't impact anything in the general fund at all, but other than we'd be able to potentially, if the additional aid allows us to, we'd be able to shift some costs for salary or expenses for UPK over to the grant.
Okay, but to the balance of the funds, how much would that be after the UPK money?
Well, all you got right now on paper, you have the 165 of universal pre-K, which would be able to shift expense. But we also have a corresponding decrease in BOCES aid of 50,000, so you're looking at about 112 net.
Okay. So in the 22-23 budget status report, will there be any adjustments that you can foresee at this point?
Possibly, if we're able to use the salary at some point, that would be a reduction of that salary line in the general fund, yes.
Okay, any other questions?
Just one more thing on the UPK, which I think we put out in the email today. There's The way that the current language has come across, there's a lack of specifics as far as what we can use it for. It reads as though it's to improve the number of 4-year-olds that are registered, so we don't know if that means they're expecting us to say, we have 60 kids now, we're going to have to add somebody to go to 90 kids, or whatever it is, or if we can do like we do now, which is simply apply it against existing UPK costs. So it wasn't clear enough to apply anything today. Comfortably, anyway.
People said that's a similar scenario to other schools in the county. I have it printed off here, and I can't read it out of my glasses, but in terms of a UPK increase for other schools,
From what I read today, it was pretty much across the board increase. And I should say also, it's the first time since the inception of the universal pre-K here that we actually had a change in the amount.
Right.
So when I read it yesterday after Dr. Ziliak, I was like, well, that can't be right. What am I reading here?
Yeah.
UPK?
But there's been no communication on why it's gone up.
Well, the state has 21 billion or 21 million, whatever it is, that they're allocating to universal pre-K.
Okay.
And the problem that we have today is that the budget was passed over the weekend, so the offices of early learning are getting the same questions from everybody else this morning, and they don't have anything to back it up.
Right, okay. Yeah, interesting. Cart before the horse.
We also use Questar, which is a financial aid service through Questar BOCES, and they had nothing today either, so.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have any questions?
Fort not going to Isabella?
Check. I had to move them closer to the mic over here so they could hear. No questions.
No questions? Okay. Okay. Since we're here to discuss this, I just wanted to say, the budget is one of the most important things that this board does in accepting this budget for our voters to vote on. I appreciate the questions, comments. I appreciate everybody's involvement in this because it's critical that we understand what's going on here. Just for the board to understand a budget is, in my opinion, very critical. So with that, we have I will need a motion to approve the proposed budget for the 22-23 school year in the amount of $31,930,024.
So
And if I could have a second.
Second.
Mr. Johnston, thank you. Any other questions on that? If not, all those in favor?
this is actually a roll call vote.
Oh, it is.
Next page.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
So just for the record, I've indicated to Ms. California and Mrs. Gallo to let me know their roll call votes through the chat here. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Aldrich.
Yes.
Ms. California. She says approve. Mrs. Gallo. Sorry, Courtney, I don't think I can hear you.
Do it. Thumbs up.
I'll come back to you, Courtney. Ms. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Hawk,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
and Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Okay, and I do have a yes from Mrs. Bellis. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we have the district property tax report card. If I could have a motion to bring that to the floor, please. Mr. Hawk, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Marshall. Any questions on that? No. not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? And we're all good there?
We're good.
Okay. Next, we have I need a motion to approve the proposition for the 22-23 budget vote and Board of Education election. Could I have a motion on that, please?
So moved.
Mr. Johnston, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Hawk. Okay. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We do not have any public, no board correspondence. Our next meeting, I believe, is May 2nd, 3rd?
Third.
May 3rd, 6 o'clock right here. With no further business, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Marshall. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 3:50. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and thank you.